Welcome to day 6 of the transatlantic leg from, we're going to Cardiff, from Newport to Cardiff, and, well, it's a dramatic contrast from the conditions that we saw yesterday. Yesterday, it was all about absolute record-breaking speeds. Today, it's about ridges and light winds. So, to explain that a little bit, we're going to have, well, another episode of Conrad Explains Sailing, this time using ping-pong balls and bits of cardboard. So we're going to see how I get up to that with explaining the way that ridges work and the strategy to get through them. Also, to further explain that, we're going to have Brian Thompson, navigator, on board, Turn the Tide on Plastic, and Anderson Reggio from the performance analysis side from Vessel 1000 Racing. And also, well, it's a weekend, so a bit of a family treat. We've got Martine Grail and her father Torben Grail connecting to each other, having a bit of a chat about who's the big dog in the family now that Martine has taken over the family prize of the fastest overall 24-hour speed record. So, pretty impressive, but it's nice to see that it stays within the family. Anyway, let's have a look about where the boats are out on the water right now. They are just 593 miles away from the conclusion of this leg in Cardiff, but it's going to be a hard-fought battle. Remember, these boats have just done 550 to 600 miles a day, but it's going to take them another 3 days plus to grind down those last few miles. Starting in the back of the fleet, we can see Sunken Kai Scallywag and Turn the Tide on Plastic are still sailing in decent pressure, decent wind, and thus their speeds are still up in comparison to those at the front. So dramatic contrast between Mafre here doing 10 knots, and then as we go into the front of the fleet that has buried itself into the ridge, you can see that speeds are dropping off. 7 for Vestas, 5 for Dongfeng, and look at the speeds here with the front 2 Dutch boats battling it out to who can be the slowest boat out on the water. At the moment, looking at the way that the wind is rocking backs and forwards, it looks like AkzoNobel is pretty close to exiting the worst part of the ridge, and so that's setting them up for a nice exit coming up. However, still lots of sailing to be done for Turn the Tide on Plastic. Good speed, but still lots of challenges to come. Let's hear from Brian Thompson explain some of the challenges coming up.
I mean, right now the team are getting ready, the masthead 0, the next sail, and just waiting for the wind to drop enough to put that up. So they're very focused on getting maximum speed, but things are going to be very different from the last few amazing days of sailing, with everything stacked at the back of the boat, doing probably the fastest speeds that we've done in the race, and maybe any of the boats, and to probably 12 hours of sleeping in the bow, and it's going to be very frustrating because at the moment the ridge is stationary, which may well allow a couple of leaders to get through it. I think if you're the leader, it's good to be to the north, and it's probably easier to get if you can get through to the north. But then to the south for us, a little bit further back, then that's where the ridge is going to sort of open up a little bit and give us some wind later. So I think we're probably better to the south, and Brunel and Axo are well positioned to the north there.
Okay, so clearly you've got this brick wall, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Can you talk us through the approach to Ireland and the Celtic Sea?
Well, we've got the next couple of days will be in fairly light air. Even though the wind might get up to 9-10 knots, we're still in this ridge that's getting pushed towards the UK, and eventually just before Ireland will get into more than 10 knots of wind, maybe 15, a northwesterly wind, which should be great. So it's all downwind but fairly light to the corner of Ireland, and then it's going to be a light patch again off south of Fastnet Rock for a few hours. So our next doldrums of the race.
Now, for fans of Turn the Tide on Plastic, let's hear a little bit of the fighting spirit. I want to hear whether the boat's in good shape, whether you're in good shape, and the rest of the crew, and you're ready for these final miles back into the UK.
Yeah, absolutely, Conrad. We are in really good shape, good spirits. Um, nothing wrong with the boat. Nothing should hold us up. So we are going to be pushing every meter into the finish and to see how we can do against these other boats. But certainly we're all going to be together compressed very soon today, which will be pretty exciting. And it's who pops out the other side the first.
So we just heard from Brian Thompson, navigator on board Turn the Tide on Plastic, about this ridge. Now, this might be something that's a little bit tricky for you to understand. It certainly was for my producer, who's a long-time sailor and didn't quite understand the way this works out. So a ridge is basically a hump in the atmosphere. Now, to better explain it, or maybe to confuse you even further, let's have a look at an isobaric chart. This is what the Met Service in the UK puts out, and we can see that we've got a low pressure over here, we've got a high pressure over here, and in the middle we've got a whole bunch of isobaric charts that are these sort of concentric circles that, while they look a little bit confusing, actually serve to tell us where the pressure is in the atmosphere. And so each one of those loops going around a high pressure, for example, indicates that anywhere on that line, the atmospheric pressure is the same. And it's a little bit lower as you go further away from the high pressure, and it's a lot lower all the way over here. Now, let's have a look at something that you're more used to looking at. This is what we've been showing you all the way through the course of the race. This is our virtual eye tracker, and it lines up nicely. You can see that we've got our high pressure sitting here over the UK, and then we've got our low pressure zone sitting here over Greenland. Now, still a little bit tricky to understand, so I've cooked up something a little bit special for you. Let's blend over to my arts and crafts project that I've spent the morning coming up with. I've been pretty busy with my snips and glue. Now, this is a 3D model of the atmosphere. So just to locate you a little bit, we've got Ireland that's sitting about there. We've got our high pressure in there at 1036, and then a low of 985. So these numbers here correspond to the pressure in the atmosphere counted in millibars. Now, the way that this works is the boats are here in this sort of long tail or plateau coming out of this high pressure. So that's the ridge. This is what we're all talking about right here. The wind in a northern hemisphere anticyclone goes around in this direction, in a clockwise direction. So the wind is basically doing this in between the high and the low. So we'll pop those wind arrows in there. However, is there more wind here or here? Well, it all comes down to the gradient, and there's lots of steps all bunched together really closely here, whereas they're all spread out over here. So there's not that much wind over in Ireland. It's going to be a lovely day. Certainly with this high pressure zone sitting on top of them right here. But to illustrate this point, we've got the boats, I'm looking right now, 3 knots of wind and 1.6 knots of boat speed. So they are stuck. That's indicated here by this ping pong ball. So you pop it here on the plateau, there's no pressure gradient whatsoever, they're completely stuck. Over here, there's a gentle gradient. It's going from 1028 on this level to 1014. So if we pop our little ramp over there and get the ball rolling down it, it rolls down nice and gently, leisurely pace. It is the weekend after all. So there is pressure and wind is flowing in this direction. Over on this side, however, it's a completely different story because we're going from 1032 all the way down to 985. So more than 45 millibars difference here. Now, you can see that the ball is a lot happier to roll down in that down that ramp because it is all compressed and there's lots of wind going to be charging from the south towards the north. So that's kind of the way that the atmosphere works. It's obviously more complicated than that, but the real question is how do you use it when it comes to a yacht race? I asked Anderson Reggio about the strategy of making it through the ridge, around Ireland, and into the Bristol Channel.
The ridge of high pressure is definitely a brick wall. The teams are going to be struggling to figure out how best to get through it with the normal trade-offs of a ridge. The farther that you are to the south in this scenario, the shorter you should have for a duration of suffering, whereas the more northern position that you cross this ridge, you'll probably have a better angle coming out of it.
Do you have a preference for where you would want your boat to end up, on the Irish side, or is it all about just trying to get sort of CMG straight into the Bristol Channel?
Once they get across the ridge, there's still a variety of things that can happen. The models are a little back and forth on what they're going to see in the Celtic Sea. And it's all a matter of just trying to get to the Bristol Channel as fast as possible. They do have a number of tidal gates that they need to worry about, and anybody who shows in the Bristol Channel after 7 a.m. on Tuesday could have a large amount of current against them.
It looks like you're not alone in the room at the moment. Do you want to introduce us to your crew?
Come here, pal. You want to say hi? Yeah, I've got the little big guy here this morning. The wife's already off at work, so I'm on daddy daycare. Do you want to tell everybody who your favorite sailboat team is? Is it Vestas? Right. Good job, buddy.
If the fans and the sailors were challenged and frustrated at times with the approach into Newport, well, you know, those were the minor leagues. Going into the Bristol Channel with the tide flushing out is going to be a nightmare. How have you prepared for that moment?
There's a number of good current models for that region. We've got a number of different resources at our disposal, plus some good localized weather models as well that we think give us a little bit of an advantage for trying to come in. Our strategy, in absent of more information before we left, was to probably play more of the North Shore on the way in, absent updated information, which has come through with the progression of the weather models, which might change that strategy slightly, but probably not significantly.
So we just saw a great video that you guys put out on Facebook recently talking about the work that you do with Vestas for modeling the surrounding headlands and so on. Is this a particularly challenging approach that you've done a lot of work with over and above the normal meteorological systems and models?
Yeah, in every leg so far, we've identified a few key locations, and for this one in particular, the approach into Cardiff was a challenge. And so we had some custom models run up of the region, but run back on sort of a historic perspective. None of the custom models that we are getting from our sponsor have the ability to run out forward from the time of a leg start through the duration of the leg to give us an accurate prediction. So it's more historic weather modeling that enables us to identify trends in certain scenarios.
I told you that this was going to be a family show. Let's go now from Anderson Reggio's son to Torben Grail's daughter. Martine Grail on board the purple and green boat. Team Ex Nobel has just taken over previously Torben's old record from 10 years ago, from 2008 when he was skipper of Ericsson 4. Now, we're going to connect them up in a little bit, or at least we did that a couple of hours ago, but let's pretend it's live. So let's have a little bit of a quick view behind the scenes as we're setting the call up when we hear Martine finally get the final number that they put over her father.
Oi, can you hear me?
Martine, we can hear you. Just stand by. We're going to connect you to Torben in just a second.
Okay, Conrad said he needs a minute, and I would like to know how many miles we did in the end.
You did 6:02.
6:02.
Hey!
All right, well, let's keep it in the family, and let's hear father and daughter talk to each other now about who is the fastest ocean racer in the family.
Hi, Martine. Hi, Martine.
Hey.
Hey, congratulations for the record.
New record.
Congratulations for the record.
Yeah, at least it stays within the family.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it lasted for 10 years. It lasted expected to last so long, but here it is going to good hands.
Yeah. They're making fun out of you because we made it in a Volvo 65 and not in a Volvo 70.
Yeah, but it's a very good feeling after you have done it, right?
Sure. I think everybody's pretty happy. It's quite an achievement.
Yeah,
The biggest challenge for me was trying to go to the toilet.
Hello all, I'm sorry to interrupt your family reunion here, as touching as it is. But Martine, I just wanted to ask you one question. In the family, you come from a notoriously competitive family, and I was wondering what this means to be the fastest person in the family. Are you going to ask your father to wash your socks or to wash your dishes now?
No, I'm gonna tell him to try to break the record again.
And then Torben, for all of the sort of parents out there watching children do crazy things, talk us through what it was like for you to be watching from land.
Yeah, it was quite different. The same thing when she was doing the Southern Ocean, the last Southern Ocean leg. You know, you're always quite worried about how things are going, and you cannot do anything. You know, when you're on the boat, you just do your thing, and forward you go. But from outside, it's quite different. Not so easy.
And so is this revenge for all of the years that Martin had to watch you on the tracker doing crazy things in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah, but I didn't knew how it was living on limit, so I wasn't that worried because I didn't know what it was about.
Now it's worse though. Martin, is it your objective with your uncle and your father being such incredible athletes to become top dog in the family now? Is that what you're chasing?
Top dog? Nah, just trying to be I mean, sailing, you're always trying to be the best you could be in learning new skills, and you always learn from different boats and different kind of sailing. So always try to be a better sailor.
Now, Torben, last one for you. If you would go and put a new Volvo team together for yourself, would you be tapping your daughter on the shoulder to come with you?
I think it will be fantastic. I'm hoping the new generation boats are going to be very exciting boats, and let's see what the future brings us. But it will be nice to sail together.
And then, Martin, any last words for your father until you see him next?
Well, I hope to see him shortly, but I think Simeon just remember that the last boat that had a father and daughter was the Sayula in the first race.
Excellent.
I think that was, I'm not sure, maybe we have to check the records. Yeah.
And they won. And they won.
Yeah, they won.
Excellent, perfect. Well, thank you very much to you both.
Ciao, bye.
I'll let you go back to making the boats go fast, Martin.
Beijo.
Bye-bye. Ciao, bye.
Ciao.
So clearly, Torben Grail there watching attentively every single move played out on the tracker, just like you at home. But remember, most of the boats have more sailors in their squad than you can have on board the boat at any one time. None more so than Turn the Tide on Plastic, which has quite a lot of crew rotating through in a big squad. One of the people watching this leg from home is Francesca Klapsic. She has been sitting out for this leg, getting stronger and ready for the next final sprint all the way through Europe. So I had a chat with her yesterday to have a little bit of a catch-up as to what her life is like on land until she gets back on board the boat.
Basically, I try to, like going to the gym or cycling or try to keep in shape and be 100% for the next 2 legs. But at the same time, I try to check all the raw content or video or blog or all the content that come on site from also the other boats. I think it's almost more important than the content that come from the Tide boat. I will try to give some debrief about what happened,
Previously, we've seen Turn the Tide on Plastic being really strong in the early parts of the legs or in the middle, often leading the race, which is incredibly exciting for your fans. But that's never converted into a win or a podium. Do you think that now is the time in the shorter legs that you can sort of convert that into a better result at the finish line?
Yeah, I think so. I'm really confident that we can do a good result, maybe a result that we deserved. We lost so many times in the last miles, and after the hard work and the big performance that we had, it was a shame. So I think maybe it's our time to shine, and I really hope that the guys out there, they are still believe that they can do it. The leg is not done at all. There are so many miles still and a lot of weather changing, a lot of transition. So I think the leg is still quite open. Also, if now it seems that other boats are going faster, but I think it's still open. So they need to believe that they are strong and our performance is solid.
Now, just to be clear, yeah, you are joining the boat again for the last 2 European leagues, right?
Yeah, exactly. I will join the team in Cardiff for the last 2 legs, so for the last push.
Nice. Now, as the race comes to its end, can you sort of editorialize a little bit about what the experience has been like for you converting from a small boat Olympic sailor to the Volvo 65 and the Volvo Ocean Race?
It's totally different from, what I was doing in the Olympic classes. I think at the beginning it was really hard to get into the routine. I was used to wake up in the morning, train all day, and go sleep in a normal bed, eat properly, sleep 9 hours. That really focused on the rest. It was like training, eat, sleep, and repeat. And it was a really routine. And the 65, of course, it's really hard, and sometimes it's really mentally tough because you don't sleep enough, you are tired, but still you have to push the boat, and still I think you have to be able to be happy with the other guys on the team. I think if someone has a hard day or a bad day, it's great that we are all together and try to make the life a bit easier of the person that is struggling a bit. So for me, it was it's an amazing sailing experience, and at the same time, it's an amazing human experience, and I learned so much. And I'm really happy to be part of a great team, and I'm proud to also to represent my country in such a incredible race.
Now, on a little bit of a personal note, today is a sad day because, well, I have to say goodbye to my buddy Bauer Beckin because the competition is over and, well, sorry buddy, our time together has come to an end. Congratulations, Mattis Menke. You absolutely knocked it out of the park, buddy. You did an incredible job guessing 641,548 Bauer Beckins, just sneaking in before the competition closed. So clearly did a fantastic job of calculating this new measure of, do you think it will become a standard unit of measure for ocean racing? Well, we'll see about that. But anyway, ciao Bauer. It's been fun. It's been real. Anyway, we'll be back again tomorrow talking to Bauer Beckin potentially, or at least Team Brunel, now that they've taken the lead and are fighting with the other Dutch boat, Team Axel Nobel, to get through the ridge and down to Ireland. So that's up tomorrow. We'll be back again. See you then.